A suspected Israeli strike yesterday killed 3 senior Hamas leaders, but there's a catch. They're in Lebanon. Israel prepares to defend themselves against allegations of genocide, and the war in Gaza enters its third phase. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 8:30 a.m. Central on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. On a related note, a developing story coming out of Iran right now is that at least 2 explosions took place in the city of Kerman, which is near a cemetery where Qasem Soleimani is buried. Right now, the only information coming out is that as many as 103 people have been killed and 180 on the high side have been wounded. That's as of now. Those numbers have continued to increase since these reports came out. As far as I've seen, there's not been any claims of responsibility nor any allegations coming from Iran as who could be behind this potential attack. But it does sound like Iran is treating this as a terrorist event. Yesterday, a strike in the Lebanese city of Beirut killed 7 members of Hamas, including 3 senior leaders. These names were eventually confirmed on Hamas social media channels, and they include Salah al-Aruri, the deputy political head of Hamas and a founder of the Qassam Brigades, the militant wing of that organization. In 2015, the United States designated Aruri a specially designated global terrorist and offered a $5 million reward for information identifying his location and leading to his capture. Additionally, Hamas confirmed that Samir Fandi and Azam al-Aqra were both killed in that strike as well. Both of those were confirmed to be brigade commanders in the Hamas Qassam Brigades. Hamas referred to the other 4 as their Mujahideen brothers without giving titles, ranks, or positions within their organization. In a statement from Hamas, they said, quote, "The assassination of our leaders is a badge of honor for us and our movement, and our resistance will only increase our determination and steadfastness to continue on the path and make the occupation pay the price for its aggression. Their blood will remain a beacon that illuminates the path to liberation for us and curses that will haunt this fragile entity until it is wiped from our land and our sanctities." And then the chief of Hamas, the head of the organization, Ismail Haniyeh, on Tuesday put out a note calling this killing a terrorist act, a violation of Lebanon's sovereignty, and an expansion of Israel's hostility against all Palestinians. Now, it's worth noting, Israel did not claim responsibility for this strike, and they still haven't. In fact, Netanyahu's foreign ministry spokesperson was kind of put on the spot, asked this question, and he kind of stumbled through a very, very loose denial, where he said, quote, "Obviously in Lebanon, there are many Hezbollah targets, but whoever did this strike was very surgical and went for a Hamas target because Israel is at war. Whoever did this has a gripe with Hamas. Whoever did this, it's not an attack on the Lebanese state. It's not an attack on the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Whoever did this, it's an attack on Hamas. That is very clear," end quote. So I guess technically we don't have confirmation that Israel's behind this strike, but I mean, come on. Like, the whole world is looking at this, knowing that these are senior Hamas leaders, high-value targets for Israel that were killed in Lebanon. Israel has the capability and the desire to strike those targets. I think it's pretty safe to say that it was an Israeli strike that resulted in the death of these 7. Now, in looking at some of the responses here, the Iranian foreign ministry spokesperson said, quote, "The foundation of the Zionist regime is based on terror and crime." He called the attack, quote, "violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Lebanon," and called on the United Nations Security Council to take a, quote, "immediate and effective response to these terrorist acts of the Zionist regime." I think it's worth mentioning the Iranian statement here, just the heavy role that they're playing in this conflict and all across the Middle East. But the more important one, from my perspective, is how Hezbollah reacts. That is the militant organization that controls the southern portion of Lebanon and has a significant military capability. They put out a statement saying, quote, "We consider the crime of assassinating Sheikh Salah al-Aruri and his fellow martyrs in the heart of the southern suburb of Beirut to be a serious assault on Lebanon, its people, its security, sovereignty, and resistance, and the highly symbolic and significant political and security messages it contains, and a dangerous development in the course of the war between the enemy and the axis of resistance and we in Hezbollah. We affirm that this crime will never pass without response and punishment, and that our resistance to its pledge is steadfast, proud, and faithful to its principles and commitments that it has made to itself, its hand on the trigger, and its resistors that are in the highest levels of readiness and preparedness, and this is a memorable day for what follows." Hezbollah then went on to claim responsibility for 10 separate attacks against Israel yesterday, which is sort of an uptick over the last couple weeks, but nothing really notable. No significant action has been taken by Hezbollah in response to this strike in Beirut as of yet. Now, it's worth paying attention to what Hezbollah says and does for a couple of reasons. One, they have a significant military capability, way beyond, it's night and day, comparing Hezbollah to Hamas, and they could deal a pretty significant blow to Israel in the north. This is also an area where people really since October 8th, when Hezbollah started attacking Israeli targets, there's been major concern that this is where a broader regional war could escalate. In fact, that concern of escalation is the reason that the USS Gerald R. Ford Carrier Strike Group was sent to the Eastern Mediterranean in the first place. The whole purpose of being there was trying to deter Hezbollah from escalating this war. Of course, it was just a couple days ago that that entire Carrier Strike Group headed back to the United States for maintenance. Then last week, South Africa filed a case against Israel in the International Court of Justice, accusing it of crimes of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. In their filing, they described Israel's actions as, quote, genocidal in character because they are intended to bring about the destruction of a substantial part of the Palestinian national, racial, and ethnic group. An Israeli spokesperson in response to these allegations said, quote, the state of Israel will appear before the International Court of Justice at The Hague to dispel South Africa's absurd blood libel, adding, we assure South Africa's leaders, history will judge you, and it will judge you without mercy. Now, this next hearing is scheduled to take place on January 11th and 12th, so right around the corner, like a week from now. But this whole process is likely to take years. So in their case, South Africa has requested that the court issue an order for Israel to immediately suspend all military operations in Gaza. I wouldn't expect much there. The same request was made of Russia when Ukraine filed their genocide case in 2022, and that war hasn't really slowed down at all. Russia just kind of brushed that aside. Now, the initial hearing that's going to take place should take a couple weeks, at which point the court will determine whether or not they're going to take up the full case that is accusing Israel of genocide in Gaza. A couple days ago, we got news that Israel has begun rotating troops out of Gaza. Some reservists are returning home. Other active duty troops are returning to their training roles, preparing soldiers for future combat. That supposedly marks the beginning of the third phase of the war in Gaza. This has kind of been leaking out. Haven't seen this put out by any official Israeli sources, but there's an article here in the Foundation for Defense of Democracy saying that they're seeing Israel transition into the third phase of the war in Gaza. The first phase was the shelling campaign that followed Hamas's October 7th cross-border attack into Israel. That was the mostly air campaign, but there's also some artillery and missile strikes into Gaza. They say that campaign aimed to eliminate the Palestinian terrorist group's above-ground targets, encourage civilians to evacuate combat zones, and clear access routes for future incursions. So there's everything leading up to October 27th, which is when the second phase of the war in Gaza kicked off. They say the second phase was the ground sweep, in which Israeli forces established control of northern Gaza, as well as much of the southern and central areas of the enclave. In this third phase that we're supposedly entering now, the thought is that more specialized, special operations type Israeli units are going to carry out kind of direct action raids, kill capture missions against senior Hamas leaders, including some in the underground networks all across Gaza. Then shifting out to the Red Sea, the Houthis once again launched missiles against commercial vessels in the region. According to U.S. Central Command, on January 2nd at 9:30 p.m. Sana time, Iranian-backed Houthis fired 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles from Houthi-controlled areas in Yemen into the southern Red Sea. Multiple commercial ships from the area reported the impact of the anti-ship ballistic missiles into the surrounding water, though none of the commercial ships have reported any damage. CENTCOM says that this is the 24th attack against merchant shipping in the southern Red Sea since November 19th. Then pulling up a graphic from Intel Schizo on Twitter here showing what we'll call Houthi activity in the general Red Sea area. They say that so far the Houthis have launched 20 missiles and 75 drones against targets in the Red Sea, with 13 of the 20 missiles and 63 of the 75 drones having been intercepted by U.S., French, or British assets in the region. The remainder, those that were not intercepted, either impacted commercial vessels or landed in the sea, which is what it looks like those 2 missiles did earlier today. Now, Maersk, one of the largest shipping companies in the world, has suspended their shipping through the Red Sea until further notice following this most recent spike in Houthi attacks in the region. They originally instituted a 48-hour pause over this past weekend, and then as soon as it expired, their ship, the Hangzhou, was targeted by Houthi rebels. This is the one where the Houthis took some boats out there, 4 boats out to the ship, tried to board it, opened fire with small arms and crew-served weapons. U.S. Navy helicopters arrived on scene. They took fire and subsequently sunk 3 of the Houthi boats and killed 10 of their fighters. Maersk added that in some cases, they might send their ships the longer route around the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. But overall, these Houthi attacks over the last few weeks, months really at this point, are taking a pretty significant toll on international maritime shipping. But that's all I've got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit-reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos that go live about 1 hour before they're up on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.